And I believe I can hand it. Do I need to do roll call?
Yeah,
Okay.
Mhm.
give me 1 second. I'm gonna
All right.
screen share this here.
There we go. Thank you.
Just in the nick of time.
I was really- Totally was.
Mr. Disheveled.
Yeah, I don't mind running back.
No,
Anybody?
maybe
Okay.
between.
All right, very good. Ready, Jamie?
Yes.
Want to do roll call?
Beckett,
Here.
Dean,
Here.
Gardner,
Here.
Leo,
Here.
Lewis,
Here.
Stanton. Here. Trustor.
Here.
Okay, our one item today for the special meeting is to talk about the budget workshop discussion. Mr. Manager,
Madam Mayor, if you don't mind, I'm going to stand up at the podium.
please have at it.
Rarity.
Indeed. And Peter moves.
We have a very, hi, I'm Ryan, City Manager.
Mhm.
With me, it's Peter Stanislawski. Hello. Scott Herbert,
Nice.
Dan Fox. But Dan's not going to be presenting. So we're doing a quick workshop for the city council budget. This is just a precursor. And we have a number of meetings coming up to discuss the workshop, but this is very high level stuff. Shouldn't take too long. I'm going to keep it super high level. If I can emphasize high level,
Mhm.
have I mentioned high level? All right, so intro slide. Quick budget presentation, as
Mhm.
mentioned.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Very colorful.
All right, so the big takeaway, and Peter's going to jump in at any point in time, is that year over year, our budget is flat, meaning revenue coming in versus expenditure. And that's okay. Because that little wording underneath there says the city has a fantastic number of reserves. You have, well, we'll get to it.
Mhm.
You have a lot of money in your piggy bank. Tax dollars. Next slide, please. Quick review of year over year revenues, expenses. Revenue. Peter can help me at any point in time. 2.87 million. Well, you can read the numbers there, but just for the audience, if we have an audience, it looks like we have a small audience. 2019, 2.87 million. 2020, 3.18 million. And I'll just pause there. And I think that 2020 going into 2021, the revenue increase came from Oval Beach.
Yeah, Oval Beach, well, it was the beginning of the pandemic, everything was shut down. Oh, you can tell the Oval Beach's revenues are $150,000.
Oh, sorry, Peter. Sorry, you have
Oh,
to
no.
share this. mic.
Just for the, yeah, so people,
Yeah. Because we're recording for posterity's sake, so that way.
So in 2020, that 3.1, it should, 3,187,000. The bump was Oval Beach. It was huge.
Yeah.
And now we're getting back even below. Oval Beach revenues today are actually below what they were 4 years ago. So,
Yeah, weather's not great.
we had two things besides the pandemic. We had high water where a lot of other public beaches, South Haven, Grand Haven, nobody had access. They didn't have, we still had a large beach out there. That's the big kick up. And then this current fiscal year, you can see it's ticked down a little bit. Even, it would even be farther down for 2020 because we got $100,000 for the Fed for whatever funds
Mhm.
necessary. So this year I predict that for 23, the overall revenues, they're going to be flat, but the expenses are ticking up. Payroll costs are going up, especially all the seasonal help costs are up. Utilities, supplies, everybody sees in everyday life. So, but our revenues are flat. That's the big thing.
Okay.
may we ask questions, Mayor, during?
This is a workshop.
Okay,
so
oh,
we'll
okay.
Ask questions. at any
So
point in time.
just so I'm clear, Peter, 2022 would be what, 2.9 5 less the ARPA stimulus?
Yeah, well, right now, we're at 3,051,000.
Okay,
Take off 50 grand. Right now, this current fiscal year would be at $3 million.
okay,
And really, the only other revenue we'll have coming in is a little bit for state shared revenue and Oval Beach. We have 2 more weeks. Otherwise,
Mhm.
majority of our revenues are already accounted for.
okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, a couple
Okay.
more slides and we can ask more questions.
Okay.
So we're looking at that 5.3% increase.
Mhm.
That's based on tax revenue, property tax revenue.
I guess that's the property tax revenues are gonna go up 5.3%, but everything else is flat or decreasing.
Mhm.
State shared revenue we're gonna lose money compared to year over year because of the census numbers. It'll be flat, and then I figure Oval Beach is gonna be, I guess, flat also, so that's going to come down.
So,
Well, we can't really predict Oval Beach.
We can't, it's all weather driven, but I mean,
Yeah.
trending that way,
so
but you
we,
don't know, something can
but
happen.
sorry, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Yeah, but we do have infrastructure money coming our way. I mean, MML, we just had another meeting today and they're still waiting on the House and Senate,
Yeah, that's-
state
yeah.
legislature.
And that could be, I don't think we're really gonna see something, maybe July, August, before they say what the rules are and what they're gonna give, I don't
Right.
know.
I just recall last year, we didn't think we were going to get anything. The next thing we turned around and we had 100,000. So, from a
It could.
positive perspective.
It's a great possibility, it could be there, but I mean, we need to, I guess, right now, we don't know
Yeah.
that, so.
Well,
I mean, there's
we
great
can't count on it.
possibility, it depends on
Right.
what it's
Do you
gonna
have
be.
any idea whether those funds will be earmarked for any particular purpose, infrastructure or something? It's, there will be
Lead water.
earmarked to it.
Broadband, lead water lines. Lots of water
Housing.
infrastructure.
Drinking water
Housing.
infrastructure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, drinking water is big.
Yep. Electric vehicle charging station.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, if I may. I did reach out to a Mr. Frank Walsh, our friend, who helps with recruiting and is very talented in all things municipal. And what I was reaching out to him for is, does he have a financial consultant that can
Mhm.
advise us in ARPA funding and what's going on in Lansing?
Yeah.
And he does. And so what I'll be asking Peter is to connect with this gentleman and
Great.
to consult with him and to make sure that we're bringing in the dollars that the city of Saugatuck deserves.
Great. Perfect.
Okay, so 5.3% increase. Well, I mean, it seems like a big increase, but just kind of, well, yeah, this slide. 5.3 seems like a big percentage, but it's only 75K. It's not that much money.
Yeah.
Next slide.
Question,
Okay.
where are the increases? Are they in new properties coming online or are they in?
Yep.
The taxable value, everybody's bill, if you guys have been,
Mhm.
it's gonna go up 3.3%, it's the state CPI.
Okay,
And then there's, that makes up the majority of it, and the rest of it's all new construction, we don't have the headly issues.
mhm.
Yeah.
Sales.
Got it.
Yeah, it's all property tax increase on that one. So here's, here's a good slide.
Yeah.
So what do you, as a city, have in the piggy bank? Roads, 2.5 million. That gets broken down into major roads, local roads. Go ahead, Peter.
About 800,000 in the major streets and 1.7 million in the local roads. And then unrestricted is in the general fund. There's $1 million that's been dedicated by past councils towards the parks.
Mhm.
There's another $3 million I would say is basically unrestricted for whatever. And then in the past, I think it's in our fund balance policy that we keep $1 million at any time. We don't want to let that reserve fall below $1 million. It's been a target in the past for everyday operating expenses that could happen that we're not planning for.
Okay.
So with that, we're working on the pavement management plan for roads.
Mhm.
And we do expect, with the help of Scott Herbert and our engineer, to bring forward to the council a plan, a 5-year plan for improving the roadways. We talked about this before. What's difficult at the moment, is that you don't want to do a major roadway construction project if you have to come back in and replace lead and water services. So everyone in the state and probably around the country is in a standstill until we can figure this out. However, I guess the point is that you have money for roadway improvements, local roads, 2.5, and you have a lot of money for capital improvement projects,
Yeah.
4 million. Next slide, please.
Quick question before we move off that slide. Thank you very much for the information. So that unrestricted funds, does that include the approximate $500,000 that will be coming off of this fiscal year? I mean, that's what the estimate was back in early May.
No,
Okay, right?
no, there's about $500,000, I believe, we still have a few more weeks more bills to come from this current budget year. And then basically, when I talked to the majority of you here in the last 6 weeks, there's about still in this general fund budget, there's about 460 some thousand for projects. So there could be, in reality, rough numbers, there's another $1 million on top of that. We got about $500,000 going to roll over from 22, and the budget we have to approve in 2 weeks. There's still in the fund, in the general fund, there's still 460 some thousand that really is not earmarked for projects or capital outlay or whatever needs to, whatever projects I guess the council comes up with in this coming fiscal year or in the next whenever.
Okay.
Capital outlays.
The other question is, there's about $104,000. I understand that's in the Sagatuck, excuse me, that's in the Zealand Holland Community Fund. That's a leftover funds from the Sagatuck Dunes system.
That's correct too. That's from the 10 years ago when they talked to Carberry, there's an endowment there and there's the spendable account that has been accruing, and it's over 100,000. We'll have the new updated numbers here probably sometime after the 1st of July. And that's what that's earmarked as unearned income revenue. So that's basically restricted or committed just to Oval Beach, to Saugatuck Carberry. It has to be spent out there.
Right. So bottom line, the city's in a good financial position from a money standpoint.
Correct.
Yeah. In financial terms, this unrestricted fund of $4 million, we are about, what, 125%
Yeah.
of fund balance.
Right.
Like the general rule of thumb for municipalities as far as reserves go, how much you want to, like, as far as like unrestricted cash on hand, reserves, money in the piggy bank, you should usually have 15 to 20% of your annual expenditures. We have 125%.
And that's where that $1 million figure, basically, $1 million would be, based on, it'd be a third of 3 million, so $1 million would be in the low 30s there.
Okay. Good.
We all have money.
Okay.
That's the main takeaway in this. And then speaking about the endowment and those very restricted funds, Scott Dean and I did meet with April Schultz, who has worked with the area from the west. I'm sorry, do you know her proper title?
I think she's the she's with the
West
Land
Michigan
Conservancy.
Conservancy, yeah.
I think the Land
Former executive director, I think is her title. Yeah.
Yes, and then she's transitioning out. But she did explain that, one of the things that the city can do is use those funds to hire an employee to maintain that whole area. Not Oval Beach, but the conservation area. And or set up trash services or restroom facilities. I don't want to say that we can get creative with those funds because they are very restricted. But there's definitely ways that we can spend that money. So
Yeah, I think when my memory serves me right, is that we talked about setting up that fund. That was built in right into the project costs and the financing and contributions, or anything like that. But something tells me that as long as any improvements in Oval Beach proper could be attributed to benefiting the natural area, you can use them, i.e. restrooms,
Yes.
expanding the parking,
Yes,
those types of things.
that's absolutely right. That's exactly what she told us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
yep, as long as we can tie it into the benefit of that property, Those monies are there. So
Yeah. Remind me how much is in that endowed fund again?
I think we're like I would say north of 100,000 for sure.
Okay, that's what I thought.
It started out at a 500,000 endowment and it's never been touched. I don't think we've taken any money out of it.
Okay,
Money's there.
okay.
Next slide, please.
Mhm. Yeah.
First thing first, let's take care of the people that take care of us. So the city's been really good about increasing staff wages. And of course, we're in a super competitive market and I appreciate the council's support on that. With the 5.3% increase, we will definitely use that for staff wages. That all goes into the budget. So no issues there. I hope not.
Okay.
Next slide, please. Any questions on?
Well, I guess just a quick one. Do you feel the numbers you've come up with are adequate to stay competitive and maybe even be a little bit better than competitive against some of the other communities around West Michigan, just given the difficulty in finding staff?
I think we've done well. Can we do better?
Mhm.
Maybe. I mean, I think we're there. I think the council has supported us. And I'm looking at Scott Herbert, who here is day to day, he works with the DPW group. I think we're there. Not only have you added additional staff to DPW, since I've been here in the last 16 months, you've supported also increases for DPW and Oval Beach, which should not be underestimated because that's a huge area of operations that launches up to 0 people during the winter to, I think the comfortable number is what, 24 to 26 employees? Help me out if I'm wrong.
Yeah, mid-20s, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a huge increase incrementally of employees for Oval Beach. But council's been supportive. So we have increased our wages hourly rate from.
Oh, gosh. Come on up.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Scott Herbert, Public Works Superintendent. Yeah, last year, I think our average seasonal rate was around 13 to 15 an hour, where this year we made a new compensation chart and we're much more competitive. And the feedback that I'm getting from staff is that they're happy with where they're at for what the responsibilities are.
Okay.
So, yeah, it went up to like 15 to $17 an hour, just kind of like base level, starting wage. And, we're no fools. We're looking around, we're looking, we can see the fast food signs, they're like hiring employees for $15. Like, oh man, how do we compete with that?
Mhm.
Well, just pay them more money.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. And so we've done it and it's paid dividends. It's really, really important.
Okay.
And we hear about it when we don't have the adequate staffing. So we're in a very competitive market. I think all of you know, we're not going to elaborate on this one. Okay, next. Okay, here we go. So really what this comes down to is, in my mind, is road funding. Right, maintaining our roads, which again gets tied into asset management planning when it comes to lead and copper water services, and that's a little complicated, but you are going to have in front of you a asset management plan for roads specifically in the next couple of months. We've talked about it. And then capital improvement plans. So there's a few. And so before you go to the next slide, Jamie, if you put money, if you pull money out of your reserves, you have $4 million there plus. If you want to put it specifically into projects, that's great. What that means is that you don't have to do a budget adjustment going into the future year. If you don't put money in there, that's not a big deal either. That just means that we'll have to do a budget adjustment to pull money out.
Okay.
It's a little more work for staff, but it works. Next slide. Yeah, not a big deal.
Yeah. See that?
Honey,
It's a little
tiny
smaller.
letters. All Mount Bald parking area. Right?
Mhm.
Downtown restrooms,
Yep, yep.
Water Street sidewalk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are the big things. That's what I've been hearing about.
Yeah,
You know, we could talk about Blue Star Trail, but I would recommend that we just wait to hear about the funding on that. Again, you can pull money out if you have to use it when you need to use it. But these are the biggies, you know, and based on everything I've heard since I've been here. And then, you know, this is also based on your strategic planning. So this is kind of the point where staff turns back to council and says, is there anything else that you want to pull money out of your piggy bank? You got a solid piggy bank to just put it in your budget. That means you don't have to do a budget adjustment going forward.
Just before we get to capital improvements, just have you and Peter taken some time to factor in kind of current versus anticipated legal costs? Is that?
Yeah, I have legal. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's the unknown dragon, you know, Brian and I talked about it, you know, what we spent this year, and then, you know, I kind of put legal costs between the city council, the outstanding lawsuits and planning commission,
Mhm.
just same thing we've spent so far this year, hope, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, you'll see the council, the packet tonight, where there's
Mhm.
what, $70,000, and that's just the month of May
Right.
of legal bills, so.
Mhm.
Sorry, Ryan, are you comfortable? You've got contingency in place?
It's gonna come out of that reserve.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah.
That's where it's gonna come from. Yeah, the funds are there, for sure.
good, good,
Yeah, no, we're in a very solid position.
good.
Okay. Okay. So,
I mean, that's it. I mean, yeah, that's when I said high level to start off.
so
That's a
can,
very high level. And then, of course, again, just talking about the budget process, this is not our last budget convo conversation. You know, we can do this again if needed. You had the opportunity to talk to Peter about the budget in detail if you needed to do that. And we can have as many meetings as you want to talk about the budget going forward until we adopt it.
So-
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
yeah. So a quick question then, with the Parks Committee coming back on, does it make sense to then that earmarked money, that $1 million, just to dedicate it and allow it for that Parks Committee for their projects and improvements that they'll eventually bring forward? Does that make sense?
That makes
So
sense to
just
me.
earmark it for them.
Well,
Go ahead, Pete.
that basically, that's what it is. It's
Right.
earmarked for parks right now. The
Okay.
only, it would have to be council action to spend it somewhere else.
Right, nope. So I just want to make sure that's going to be dedicated. So when the Parks Committee starts meeting, they recognize that they're sitting and they have the ability to bring forth projects up to $1 million. And that
Basically,
would
yeah,
include
that's-
any park related, including a Mount Bald Park, right? Okay,
Yes.
got it.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Gentlemen, great job. Scott, very good job. I know you guys all have an active part in putting this together, and you know, I love budgets. I'm a finance guy, so this is kind of stuff I just absolutely love. But at the end of the day, the budget is a document that we need to use to improve the city services, infrastructure, make a better government, in my opinion. And I think it's mostly here. There's a few things that I want to put on the table when you ask the question about some things that maybe council's looking at, me speaking individually. A few things that I like to put on the table. One is, I think you mentioned that the staffing is incredibly important. Every organization is dealing with hiring appropriate and good people and keeping them. And I think something that the city should take a look at, I'd like to suggest we put in an employee engagement survey, say $10,000 into the city manager or city administration department for potential use to get feedback from, including council, getting feedback from city employees on how they feel we're doing as a council, how we feel we're doing as city leadership in terms of ways that we can improve. And I think that will help employees with engagement as well as retaining them. Two is on infrastructure. Something that I'd like to see us specifically put in is repairs and maintenance to Paint City Hall in the information booth. Specifically, I know that today in the packet, by the way, Scott, your staff did a fantastic job on the gazebo, but I saw clearly in the note that there's many other projects on their docket that they have to deal with, that they don't have the bandwidth to pick up big projects. I think City Hall absolutely today needs attention, exterior, 100%. The information booth, if you've not looked at it, it's in pretty bad shape. And given the restraints I'm hearing, I'd like to see the city put at least $40,000 to $50,000 aside for getting contracts to paint City Hall and also take care of the information booth. I don't think we should leave that for another season until staff has enough time to do that. The other thing from a City Hall standpoint that I'd like to see us put in the, what I'm calling Sagatuck 311. I've talked with Ryan about this. I've talked with Scott about this a little bit. I think the city can do more to help citizens and visitors report issues. Today, what I'm hearing is people text staff, they will email staff, they will call. And that's an incredible amount of information coming into the city. And what I'd like to see us do is make it easier for everybody to manage that information. Sagatuck 311 is an idea I've come up with, and I'd like to see us put $5,000 to $10,000 in to look at an option for a maintenance software that can help us track those. I think that will benefit everybody, including council and the city administration.
Other thoughts? I think we have technology issues in the budget already, right? We have a technology portion, monies dedicated to technology. Right,
That's correct.
right.
Yes.
And I think from your report that I read, you also are, the ongoing renovations to City Hall have been included in that. So
That's
that's
correct.
just,
Yeah,
that's been assumed already.
I read that as well, but I think this is a situation where the city absolutely just needs to make this a project, make it a priority and take care of it. City Hall looks like crap, people. I mean, there's no two ways to put it. And that's not a criticism against any individual. It's just, it's right in front. This is centered in town. People, this is one of the first things they see when they walk into town. It should look better.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Just, I guess I'd just like to ask amongst the council, how we feel about sort of infrastructure and capital improvements that are sort of seasonal in nature. You know, I agree, we do need a restroom, a good restroom over by Coughlin Park. I'm wondering though, you know, because once you build an asset, you have to maintain it, you have to take care of it. It becomes a cost. So I am wondering if we should be thinking, and I'm open to other thoughts on the council, if we should be thinking about, you know, ways that we flex, you know, and we bring in, and I brought this up before, and some people have different views on them. If for things like, you know, an adequate number of restrooms for all the visitors we get in the summer, if we do need to budget for, you know, the executive event type washrooms that are, you know, a higher level of quality. But then they're only there for say 4 or 5 months, and then they're pulled out. So somebody else has to maintain the depreciation, the costs associated with it. It's one less thing for the DPW crew to have to winterize. I'm just wondering if we should be thinking in some of our expenditures toward services as opposed to assets. So
Well,
just
Yeah,
I'll put that out there.
Yeah, let me remind everybody, we spent several hours in December doing strategic planning, and part of that exercise was to determine what we thought were the priorities. And I would assume then that we, knowing where we are in such good standing, that we could then basically attach numbers to those highest of priorities. And then, you know, at the end of the year, when we do it again, as we start taking things off the list, we can start assigning new, but I would hate for us to spend that amount of time and not focus specifically on those projects that came up during that, you know, exercise. So,
That's correct. And that's,
Yeah.
that's the main takeaways
Good.
from the planning is,
Yeah.
are these projects.
yeah, okay. Have you looked at those and thought high level numbers on those projects that we?
Well, you had Fleece and Vanderbrink, actually, that's your engineering firm, look
Yeah.
at these numbers.
Couple of years ago, yeah.
But just to give you an example,
Mhm.
Bridge Street, they came in, sorry, Bridge Street came in with their new water service at slightly over 100,000. That was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
When the new actual numbers came in, it was at 400,000 plus.
Mhm.
So you
Yeah.
can pretty much put a escalator
Mhm.
×2 for the numbers that we had before.
Yeah.
So it definitely is time for a relook, and this is what's going to be great about this new Parks and Public Works
Yeah.
Committee,
Mhm.
is that they're going to take the priorities from the city council,
Mhm.
whatever they are, they'll study them and they'll work together with Scott, myself and
Great.
staff. And we'll have to work up new numbers. Things aren't the same anymore.
Okay.
And yeah, back to your point about strategic planning. That's where it's at. That's, Russ, your points were good. But you will have to, go to the council, talk those over and see if those are actual priorities and kind of flesh that out.
All right. So next steps, Ryan, as far as before we approve the budget.
You'll have another budget presentation.
Okay.
Again, this is an opportunity just to ask the questions that you're asking.
Yeah.
And if you, as a council, feel like you don't have enough information, we can, again, have another meeting or as many meetings as you need in the next couple of weeks.
Is it possible to pull out where we were at and look at those high level strategic planning
Yep.
goals that we
Bring that
had
back to you.
and as a
We-
group
Yep.
determine?
Yep, these are the highest of the highest,
These
but
are the
yeah.
highest. Okay. Might
I
be
will
good just to
bring you
reminder.
back that full list and resend that to you all.
Great. And then visit it in a budgetary workshop.
Yep.
Again.
Great.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Thanks. Bernadette. Two questions. One, Water Street sidewalk, is that something beyond what is scheduled down at 726 or not?
No, that's
Okay.
the project that we're
Yeah.
talking
All
about
right.
today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same
Okay,
project.
thank you.
Yeah.
Second thing, it's more directed as, not directed to Scott, but about Scott's department. With us asking you, and this is really towards you,
Great.
asking more and more responsibilities for Scott, are we in a position to have some type of, and maybe you already have, like a number two guy that you've trained, that you're paying, that you're grooming, that type of stuff? I think it's really an important
Come on.
situation, so I,
If you're comfortable with it.
no, I'm just, curious.
We've had this discussion.
Yeah.
And I thank you for the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is something, a lot of the job that I have, it's changed quite a bit over the years. And what was more me in the field, working along the side of the crew has become a lot more administrative in nature. And for that reason, it would be beneficial. Even Douglas, they're a public works department. They have a number two, assistant superintendent. And whether that's just simply somebody that's out in the field more than I can be to hold the standard quality of work, and also step away, if I go on vacation or something, that person can step up as a go-to contact. So we have
You're working
talked
on it.
about it, and I think it's appropriate.
Yeah.
He's not gonna quite wear a suit.
But Ryan, he
But
also-
it's gonna
Yeah.
maybe mean khakis.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, I
We'll-
don't
we'll
know.
see about it.
Well, Ryan,
Uh,
Ryan.
I'd have
he-
to improve his
yeah.
office.
I think
No, we're there. I know it's a great question. And based on my observations, 16 months, is that it's a small city with high demands, right? What do they call it? A small city with,
Big city problems.
Yeah.
thank you. So there's a high expectation here for services and between Oval Beach, all of our amenities. I mean, that's a lot. You're working with 26, you're working almost with 40 employees, which is no small thing. And so Scott and I talked about his being comfortable with transitioning into taking a more administrative role. And he's made it quite clear that he'd like a balance, but I do think he needs an assistant, a number two person that he can rely on to just do housekeeping and help with customer service. And then in addition to Kate White, which is another wonderful ad. By the way, she's on a vacation to Scotland for a couple of
Oh,
weeks.
good
Good
for
for her.
her.
Yeah, wonderful. In addition to that support, I mean, I think the city is really catching up to the demands. I don't know if these are new demands. Again, I've only been here 16 months, But I think the city is catching up with the demands and the administrative resources that are necessary to make the city run
Mhm.
efficiently.
Yeah.
And we have to do, in my opinion, and going back to Russ's point about the 3-1-1, we have to do things more proactively and efficiently. Proactively meaning like just have systems in place to handle all the concerns and compliments that we receive from our constituents,
Mhm.
your constituents.
Scott, you had a question?
Well, I was just going to make a joke that we've already determined that you can't drive a plow truck, so there's that. But no,
That
I
is
will-
actually very true.
Yeah,
Yes.
so you can't be trusted with a plow truck. But on a serious note, I agree with Mark. I do think Scott needs help for all the right reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I further expound, now that he has taken on more of an active role with Oval Beach, there's no reason why we can't tap some of the Oval Beach fund, maybe already ahead of that, as part of that compensation situation. I
Oh,
mean, if you're looking for, it shouldn't come out of the street fund or,
right.
just my thought. I mean, I know it all kind of. Well, if we have an increase in either because of what Scott's needs from a personnel standpoint and or additional compensation, a lot of his responsibilities, from what I've observed, is the added role out at Oval Beach. And so if it's coming from if that's
Yeah.
part of that case, there's no reason why Oval Beach shouldn't be funding it. As opposed to out of just,
So you're saying,
let's
Yeah.
reduce the street fund by $40,000 for Scott's additional.
Well,
But I don't know how you do. I'm
Yeah.
sure you can either, you've got the ways to do that, but I'm just a suggestion or just a question of.
Yeah, but I think currently we take care of that because Scott and the entire crew, everybody fills out timesheets, by.
You're already. then you're
Yeah, so
already filled
it's
in.
already
Okay,
getting
that's good. I like
charged.
that.
yeah,
Yep, good.
appropriately.
So
Yeah,
that-
it's
so
getting
it's being
charged to
charged that way. Okay,
wherever
good.
the
Thanks.
cost is being driven from.
Okay.
Yeah, let me add on to that. And one of the big issues with Oval Beach operations, I don't know if all the council is aware, but Scott Herbert, before I arrived, got thrown into managing Oval Beach,
Mhm.
which came as a surprise to the mayor at the
For
time,
people.
correct?
Mhm.
Council at the time.
And how many years have you been managing Oval?
Indirectly, well, pretty much about the last year that Kirk was city manager, he had pulled me aside and just said, look, this is really a park and it needs to be under your supervision. And so basically ever since then, Peter takes a pretty active role in the more admin business aspect of the beach, where I would take care of more of the physical operation. So it's been a little bit of a balance, but with
I'm sorry, just jump in. When did you get thrown into that role? Just when he was.
yeah, it was probably what year did he leave? It was 2020,
So
right?
proud to started that season.
2019?
Yeah, it was pretty much then.
Okay.
But we also had an Oval Beach manager too that worked out there. Linda, she worked out there for a number of years.
Mhm.
And I was fortunate to work with her because you just kind of wind her up and she goes out to the beach and it all falls into place. But since then, we've had a little bit of employee turnover with that. And it seems to happen right before Memorial Day. But, and that's when it kind of became a shock factor where I'm like, someone, other than just having this undocumented tribal knowledge, someone needs to catch up with the current operation and make sure that it stays afloat. And so that's been a huge undertaking because it's not ideal. I mean, you're dealing with a hostile crowd out there at times. It's holidays, weekends, restrooms, trash,
Mhm.
and no one's jumping at the bit to do those things. It's a huge commitment.
Yeah.
Scott,
Okay.
here's your. So the
Next
council has
steps.
been good with supporting that Oval Beach role. Whether you know it or not, the plan that we've implemented is that with your support, we hired an extra person who is now a full-time member of Parks and Public Works, another employee, but they play this half role. So we can, the only way that we figured out we think, that we can keep a beach manager is to have full-time employment in the winter. So it's a full-time employment, full benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is interesting. And we think it's gonna work. We think we have a person in place.
Yeah, it's great.
And that we don't have to fight with this year over year about getting a person out there. If they have the bennies and a good salary, and we can flex them in the winter to help with snow services and other things over the winter. And then we can just, they have full-time employment, right? Year long, right? And trying to find a responsible human that can manage the beach services at the wage that we're offering is a challenge. And so I think we're on the right path. And again, I would compliment the council on that move.
That's,
Yeah.
Linda, that was the role Linda had, and before her, Denny,
Oh,
yeah, Howell, kind of, sort of. With some other issues.
All right.
So I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're
That's
there. I
good.
think you did a great job
All right.
supporting us.
No,
We're working it out with your budget. So
Okay.
it's
very
not going to come up as a big budget expense. We're quite there, correct, Scott? Yeah, we're there. Yeah.
good. Okay,
Just,
go ahead.
yeah, just a warning for everybody, which is your phones are all probably going off. We've got a severe thunderstorm headed here.
Oh,
According to the National Weather Service, 70-mile-per-hour winds and ping
Okay,
pong
meeting's
size,
canceled out
ping
there.
pong ball size hail. So
Okay.
we may lose our connection to
Okay.
the folks that have dialed in, and
All right.
just a heads up for everybody, if they have vehicles or people out or animals out and about, they might
Okay.
want to make a call if they're.
All right.
Yeah,
So.
they were
we-
saying 100-mile-an-hour winds are possible.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So should we?
Fun. So just to wrap this up then, before we go into our regular meeting. So can we
Yeah.
assume that at the next workshop, I'm just going to throw this out there, that they'll bring back those high level
Yes, ma'am.
goals and numbers attached?
Yes, ma'am.
Opposed to
The best that I can do. I mean, I wouldn't want the engineer to restudy it. We'll just put
No,
an
no.
escalator, throw
Yeah.
some money in. Again, there's no, you can put any dollar amount you want in,
Sure.
2 million, 3 million,
Right.
1 million. The worst thing that would happen is it goes back into reserves if you don't spend those dollars.
Right.
So I'm not gonna do like a fast launch and like having them review those numbers again.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yes,
Yeah. So,
I'll give you the,
My dad just texted.
So
to
just to
let
be-
me know that a
just to be clear, so you want like the top 10
we
projects?
we had the four columns and one, I think if you take we had priorities, top priorities in each one.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry, I didn't drag this out.
It's okay.
But if we were to look at the first top two of each one, I would think that would probably more than account for that extra reserves that we have, right? Wouldn't you
Yes,
assume?
I would agree.
That'd be a good start.
I would.
And if it
Well,
doesn't make
this
sense,
is a
you can
good
say.
start Right here.
Yeah.
And we've already made good strides before this meeting, so
Yeah.
thank you.
All right. Very good. Okay.
Good for you.
Anything
Thank
else
you.
for Ryan? Thank you. Very good. And Peter, thank you for the time. I've always enjoyed, I love sitting down and talking the budget with you. It's great fun. So, all right, good.
Thanks. This
All right.
meeting ends and then we can hang out for 20
Yeah.
minutes.
Thank you.
Unless.
We have some time for public comment on the
yeah.
agenda. So if anybody
Oh, yeah,
would
sorry.
like to
Thank
step
you.
up and make public comment, we have one person in the room and we have a couple people online. So at this time, if anybody would like to chime in on public comment, please raise your hand. Madam Clerk? Nobody? All right, with that, motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
All right, adjourn. Very good. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
We have a few minutes. So we're under fire.